Namaste nerds, it's Navanad, Budget Pub Stomper. Today we're going to be doing something very different. We're going to be talking about some things, but key among them is going to be the band announcement from today, September 23rd, 2024, for the record. I know this isn't kind of my forte. I'm mostly a budget channel, but I'm also a competitive, like a CDH player. I like to play budget competitive. I think it's fantastic. It's a very cool place to brew and express yourself still. You know, there's a lot of space to explore, and it's fun gameplay. But I also really enjoy CDH, and this band announcement feels like a big old middle finger straight at the face of all CDH players. So yeah, so this isn't my normal thing, and if you're just really interested in budget content, then probably not going to be your video. But I did just do a video Friday. Go take a look at that. I'm bummed. I'm like super bummed about this. But I'm gonna talk about this. This is I'm a content creator that makes Commander content, so I don't know how I can ignore this, right? So what I'm gonna specifically talk about, I'm going to talk about the effects this is going to have on the format. And I don't think it really has an effect on casual Commander. Not that much, right? Nadu probably cleans up some casual. I don't know. Was anybody playing that in casual? I don't think so. Sorry, that's me sipping on coffee. Oh, tea. Chai tea. So, yeah, this is not a casual kind of. This is a. There's been a whirlwind in CDH and Commander as of the last couple of weeks, and I don't really feel like I don't think I ought to say too much, and I'm not really. I know I've heard a lot of people just running their mouths about this whirlwind of the CDH thing that's been going on, and they just have no idea what they're talking about, and they've exaggerated and clickbaited, but they're basically, in a nutshell, so you have some context. What happened was, maybe 2 weeks ago, if even that, like this just all happened. We had the rules committee making a statement. Well, okay, there's this huge, pretty big organization, the biggest by far, CEDH, competitive tournament organization, formerly known as Eminence Gaming. It's now called it went from Eminence to Top Deck. And if you've been to a CEDH tournament, you've probably been to a Top Deck tournament, at least a tournament that was using their software. If you could track your stats online, if you go to Top 16 and you can find it, like Commander Top 16, that uses their proprietary software, Command Tower. Yeah, so this huge organization, well, relatively speaking, the biggest tournament organization for Commander. They had a little committee that I guess reached out to the RC and kind of asked for help, right? Like, hey, can you give us a hand? Our format's in a little bit of trouble, which I, by the way, don't agree with. I think the format's fantastic. I think it's been great. I think we were in the like just absolute most if it ain't broke, don't fix it scenario you could imagine. I mean, if you've played any other formats, Modern, Pioneer, it's nothing like that. I went to a 10K last week, and I did real well, by the way. I took Malcolm Tana out for a spin. I know I keep getting told it's not a real deck. Well, if it's not a real deck, I don't know. If the deck's so fucking bad, why does it win so goddamn always? That's what I want to say. I've never not top 16. Literally, I've only played 4 tournaments with it, but I've literally top 16 to 100% of them. I top forward one. I was first seed going into the top 16 of this last one. The deck is fucking for real. And it's even better now, I think. The problem I have with it now is that I don't think I'm going to be the cool hipster that plays the weird deck anymore. I think, my deck will still be a weird version of Malcolm Tana. But people are going to have to start playing Malcolm Tana, I think, because it's a good deck that I never tutor for dockside. It doesn't need dockside. Malcolm is a mana engine. Anyway, if you've been to a tournament, you've been to a Top Deck tournament, most likely. That was a Top Deck situation. And they asked for help. They said our format needs help, or would you be willing to open communication? And Jim LaPlante of Spike Feeder fame CDH enthusiast himself, member of the rules committee, made a statement, something along the lines of, if I felt or if I sounded ambiguous in past, sorry guys, I don't ever use, if this will be the proof, I can't think of what the name of it is. What's that called when you write shit down and then you say it later? I never use scripts. So yeah, I'm a little bit all over the place. It's because I don't use a script. But Jim LaPlante made a statement that was basically like, if I sounded ambiguous in past, it's I want to just be very clear that the rules committee is not interested in helping you balance a competitive format. If you want it to be done, you're going to have to do it yourself. You know, that's pretty much it. And so there were some guys in Eminence that were like, or Top Deck, that were like, okay, we're going to do that, which I think was totally fucking asinine. I don't believe in this idea of making a separate format out of CEDH. I don't mean I don't believe in it like I don't believe in hitting women. I mean, I don't believe in it in the ways that in the same sense that I don't believe in black snow, right? It's not like I don't think it all. It's not a thing. It's a non sequitur. You can't do it, right? You can't do it. It doesn't make sense to do it. Like if you try to split the format, then you're still. Well, we had one format before Commander, and what happened to it? Some people played it casually, and put gloves on, and played like a battle cruiser Monopoly type game, and then other people were like, hey, how far can I push this? I'm gonna try to build good decks. I'm gonna try to build the best deck I can. I'm gonna try to win. And that will happen in two sub-formats. If you separate them, you'll get both of those kinds of things. All you're going to do is splinter the format and stymie growth and make it harder for people to come from casual to get into CEDH. So I think it was just a terrible idea. And it imploded pretty quickly. For a lot of reasons I don't think I'm qualified to get into and probably shouldn't. I've heard a lot of people say clickbaity stuff that... I don't know, I think it wasn't true or exaggerations and stuff, but let's just say it turned out to be the case that allegedly one of the kind of top guys, the creator of the software that they use, their Eminence Top Deck, fucking, what's it called? Command Tower software. The guy that wrote that software apparently is like a neo-Nazi. I mean, like, not really. He apparently was had a shockingly big interest in Holocaust deniers and seemed to be at least like somewhat sympathetic to some anti-Semitic. I don't even want to say all this. I don't know. He was found to be of questionable character according to certain people in the community, and so the whole thing sort of imploded because the community turned on them. People were boycotting tournaments. And yeah, as far as I know, still to this date, like right now, just a week later still, I don't think Top Deck is a thing anymore. Or I don't know. I don't want to say that. I don't know. But they, it had the banned list, the idea of this banned list went away, poof, gone. And now not long after that, we get what feels to me like a middle finger right in the face of CEDH. Like, does anybody care? Dockside's not even that good in casual. Like, if you try to play Dockside in a $500 meta even, it's not that good. It's good. It's not that good. It's not crazy. It's not busted. I've played it in casual decks. It's not that great. It's fine. It's good. It's not busted. It's busted in exactly CEDH. Jeweled Lotus. Yeah, that I can see. I can see where people would be a little bit nervous about that, but it did so many good things for the format too. And in my opinion, Jeweled Lotus has a real opportunity cost. If you play Jeweled Lotus, yes, it creates some busted starts, but also sometimes you're in the late game and you have to top deck a card that really doesn't do anything, which is bad. So it kind of, Mana Crypt. Holy shit, I cannot believe they banned Mana Crypt. Now, if this is going to sound like a lie, this is going to sound like bullshit. I swear to God, I swear on anything there is. I had two in real life proxyless decks that I was working on. One's my Malcolm Tana deck, fully proxyless. It's got all the cards. And then the other one I was working on for my daughter, Slicer. She's younger, and I thought it would be a deck that she could handle and figure out, and it'd be fun for her to play. And I was missing exactly one card, Mana Crypt. That was the last card that was proxied in the deck, and I bought one yesterday. That fucked up. No, I swear to Christ. On September 22nd, 2024, Navanad here bought a Mana Crypt. Got a good deal on it. $160. $160. Real good condition. Never even got it in the deck. I never even got to, well, it's like sitting in the deck box, but I didn't sleeve it up. Never even got to sleeve it up. There's been a banning in what, 2 years? And I've had that deck for a year. It's had this one proxy in it for a year, and there's not like a tournament coming up or anything. There's no reason for it. Just like, I think I'm gonna go ahead and buy that Mana Crypt for my daughter's deck. And literally the next morning it was banned. Is that not crazy? Anyway, so what's going on now? So I think this is gonna be insanity for CDH. I think it's going to be terrible. What I predict happening is this is going to be used as a catalyst to create another attempt at splintering the format into two, which I'm not saying that should happen. I'm saying I think that's my prediction. My prediction is this is going to be the catalyst that causes Tournament EDH to actually split off from the casual Commander format, which I think is a terrible idea. I hate all of this. I think this is just so bad. But let's talk about some other things, some more direct and obvious things that are going to happen as a result of these bannings. Commanders, I went through and went through and just found a couple things that I wanted to talk about here. So, Magda used to be able to win the game with just a dockside extortionist. But I actually don't think Magda's going to be in that bad a shape. I heard a couple people talking about how Magda was so good with dockside that without dockside it wasn't nearly as good. I actually think, relatively speaking, Magda's going to be fine. I mean, you can build a $100 version of it, have done, that will consistently threaten turn 4 wins with no dockside. You don't need the dockside. You're doing kind of dockside-y things anyway. I think Magda's going to be fine. This Godo, rip, gone. This is dead. This is probably never going to be seen in the format again. Godo is missing a big piece of fast mana in Mana Crypt. It's missing the card that kind of started to revitalize it a couple years ago, Jeweled Lotus. And it's so it doesn't have dockside, it doesn't have Jeweled Lotus, and it doesn't have Mana Crypt. Get out of here. There's no way. You know, the whole thing with Godo is you count to 11, win the game. That's dead. That's dead and gone. Why do I have these guys highlighted or set aside? Because I think, and I haven't heard too many people apparently sharing my sentiment, but it seems to me pretty fucking obvious that ad nauseum decks aren't going to be, they're going to be taking the turbo out of the turbo ad nause. So, like this deck in particular, like getting out a fast Tevish as your backup plan when you're mulling for mana. How are you going to get out a fast Tevish? It's going to be a lot harder. Tevish isn't going to be as good now. No 5 mana commander, 5, 6, 7 mana commander. Like Atraxa, get out of here. Atraxa is dead as fuck. Niv Mizzet is dead. Like, you don't have Jeweled Lotus, you don't have Dockside. The whole deck was tutor for Lotus or tutor for Dockside, and then get your commander out and proceed to kick everybody's ass with your crazy commander. You know, there's people that are identified with these. Like the 10K I went to, I saw 2 Niv Mizzet decks. 180 players. I wasn't even expecting to see one Niv Mizzet, but we had a gal, Shayna, from California, all the way out to like the Detroit area, and she plays in all these tournaments, and she always plays Niv Mizzet, and it's like who she is in the format, and that's gone. I think it's really sad. You know, I think that's sad. This is something that those cards brought to CDH, was the ability to jam a commander that costs blue, 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 red, 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 and really, like, you could play it and win games. She made the top 16. I mean, she didn't have the record I had. No, but she does. She always does. Dead, right? Now, I wanted to highlight Kinnan too, for a different reason. And now this is kind of what all of this is. Like, my take on what's happening in CDH now because of the bannings is this. there are a bunch of decks, a bunch of entire archetypes that no longer work. Like Korvold will never see the light of day again, and CDH. It's never going to see CDH play again. That was dockside the deck. But if it's not just that we're going to be killing a few decks, we're killing entire archetypes. There's a whole genre of decks in CDH that's just abusing dockside extortionists to make infinite mana. Those are gone now, right? They're totally gone. The turbo ad nauseum decks, I don't think people have figured this out yet, but without, I don't know why, but without Mana Crypt, without, in some cases, Jeweled Lotus, but more importantly, without it's 3 pieces of fast mana, right? Jeweled Lotus, Mana Crypt, and Mox Opal. That's the one people are kind of skipping. Like, Dockside's the fastest of fast mana. You're stripping all of that fast mana out of an ad nauseum deck. I remember before everybody was playing, turbo ad nauseum dockside main phase, kind of decks. It was hard. Got a whole ton of people, like the last 4 years or whatever, of people playing turbo ad nauseum decks that don't even know ad nauseum is an instant, because you just get to turn 3, tap out for ad nauseum, and send it, right? Are you going to do that now? So if you're now, let me back up a little bit. Turbo ad nauseum decks. How many turbo ad nauseum decks are you aware of that don't have the color identity of red? I think, is it literal 0? Is the number literally 0? Why do you think that is? Rite of Flame? It's not Rite of Flame. It's Dockside. That's the reason the deck works. Well, it's the reason it works on turn 2 or 3. So if you don't have Mox Opal, because how are you going to play Mox Opal if you don't have Dockside and you don't have Jeweled Lotus and you don't have Mana Crypt? Do you have enough artifacts to play Mox Opal? I'd say probably not. And if that's the case, you didn't just lose 3 pieces of fast mana, you lost 4. And the whole thing about main phasing and ad nauseum on turn 3 is that you're going to draw a bunch of cards, and and all you have to do is just either hit your Dockside or a way to find your Dockside, and you just win. Well, that doesn't happen anymore. So I've heard people say, like, Rogsai isn't going to be damaged. Now, look, Rogsai, relatively speaking, may still be, it'll probably be the only turbo ad nauseum deck left, because with I think Rograt gets a lot better. So, okay, this is a weird thing, right? Because I think, obviously, ad nauseum decks get worse. And obviously, Grixis ad nauseum decks are getting punched right in the dick. There's no doubt about it. But a lot of decks are getting punched pretty hard. And of all of the ad nauseum decks, especially the Grixis core decks, it could be the case that Rogsai is the only one that survives. This is going to be a total homogenization of the format. I just can't imagine it going any other way. Rogsai may still be playable, but so I'm saying, it sounds like I'm saying both, like I'm contradicting myself, talking out of both sides of my mouth, right? Because I'm saying Rogsai is getting worse, obviously. Any Grixis ad nauseum deck is getting worse, fucking obviously. And it obviously is, a lot worse. Well, then how come I'm saying Rog might be getting better and be the only... Because he might be the only one that survives it. All of the ad nauseum decks are going to get worse. All of the Grixis all of the Rakdos Plus ad nauseum decks are, as a matter of objective fact, getting much worse. I don't know how anybody could deny that. It's like a lot worse, too. But Rogsai can still use the 0 mana commander to come up with a lot more mana than other more Dockside reliant decks will be able to do. Like Dockside will come out and they'll put Infernal Plunge back in the deck, and there's another piece of kind of fast mana. So even though I think, and Rogsai doesn't give a shit about Jeweled Lotus either. So Jeweled Lotus doesn't matter. Dockside is a big hit to the deck. But that deck can at least run, maybe it still can run Mox Opal. If it still can run Mox Opal, it's going to be in good shape. It's obviously still going to be a lot worse. I think we're going to see in-step ad nauseums come back to the format. That's one of my predictions. But this son of a bitch here, why am I talking about ad nauseum and all this other shit with Kinnan on the screen? Because this deck doesn't give a shit about any of these bans. Okay, so Kinnan's not an S tier deck, right? I never really was a believer that it was. But I think it is now. Kinnan does not give a shit about a single one of those bannings. Doesn't care. Kinnan was already able to compete with all these great decks. So what does that mean? You know, if Kinnan was already almost as good, it was like closing in on like the top 5 decks. For a long time, people thought it was the best or second best deck in the format. Like I said, I was never a Kinnan believer. Been on record a lot saying that. Well, I'm a believer now. In a post dockside world, look at the bans and how much damage they did to every freaking deck out there. Get Rog, get wrecked. Without, you know, there's just no way you're not playing a 5-mana commander anymore. That might be a little hyperbolic. Like, maybe if there was a good 5-mana Jund commander that wasn't Corvold, you could play like the black rituals, the red rituals. You could play the mana dorks in green, which I think might make a comeback, by the way. Mana dorks, I know it's a Bowmaster's world, but I mean, do you want to play a deck that doesn't have dockside or dorks? I don't want to do that. So anyway, Kinnan I think is going to be the new blue form. I can't imagine it not going that way. Kinnan is like horny, like is man. Kinnan's having a field day. All of the Kinnan pilots of the world rejoice. Well, or maybe not, because there's only going to be like, you know, it's going to be one of the only decks left, is my fear. Its biggest competition were the Grixis decks that it seemed to be a leg under, and Nadu. Well, Nadu's gone. Here comes Kinnan again. Kinnan stayed the exact same power level, and almost all of the decks in the format went down a notch. So I think Kinnan is your new dog. Look at these things, though, like Kodama Sakashima. Yeah, right. This was such a cool deck. Look at what our format loses. 6-mana commanders are, like, they're so fun and so cool, these commanders. It's totally impossible. You can't play Kodama. I mean, especially since they didn't ban Bowmasters, so your dorks, you can't just put your faith in the fact that you're going to be able to get 6 mana and then form. I don't know. I'm getting, now I'm probably just sounding whiny and bitchy. I think, look at all these decks that are just fucked. I mean, just all of them, man. All of them. All of them are doing. It's so bad. Temur Thrasios. Okay, what was your trick? Well, it made infinite mana with Dockside and wins the game with Jessica. Well, okay, that's not gonna work. Animar, what was your plan? I mean, it was like not a good deck, but it was a deck because of Dockside. It's a Dockside combo deck. It's more and more over the years has become more and more a Dockside combo deck. Oh, what about this one? Is this a let's see. Well, we were just talking about how Rog makes mana easier, so will this survive? No way, right? This is a Dockside deck. There's all these are Dockside decks, but you know what's not a Dockside deck? Kinnan. So that's kind of my fear. What about some hopeful things? Because rest in peace, Niv Mizzet. Rip Tevish Rog. Rip Godo. Magda, I think you're going to be okay. What are some... Here's some good news for everybody. This is what I think is good news. I think Urza is a cool fucking deck, right? I think it's a super cool deck, and it's a monocolored deck, and it's hard to get a good monocolored deck. And if we get some real good monocolored decks out there, then I think that's a good thing. And I think Urza just got, like, way better. And why do I say that? Well, what were the problems with Urza? First of all, let's look at the positives of Urza. Well, no, let's talk about the problems. The problem, number one, is all of his stacks pieces that used to be so damning, nobody gave a shit about anymore. Like, yeah, they hurt some people some of the time, but a lot of times when you drop a winter orb, and or static orb, and or back to basics, you're kind of king making, because there's going to be one guy that slams Dockside and wins the game, doesn't give a shit about your winter orb. And now that's not a thing. So now all of Urza's stacks pieces that he breaks parity on just got a lot better. Like a lot better. Hard to exaggerate how much better they got. Also, one of the big problems with playing Urza is if there's a Dockside deck in the pod, you're feeding the shit out of it. Like every card in your deck's an artifact. So like by turn 2, your Rog side player can slam a Dockside for 7, right? That's not going to happen anymore. And then the other thing that maybe people won't think about, or haven't figured out yet, is all of the infinite mana combos in the format. Well, a lot of the infinite mana combos in the format just got evaporated. But one of them for sure still works, and that's Isorev, which is almost out of the format. But Urza makes the best use out of any deck, probably period, of Isorev. And I think the format will have slowed down a step. I think the format's going to slow down. The ROG size are going to be like turn 3 or 4 instead of turn 2 or 3. So I think the format slowing down makes it a little bit easier to play like these 4-mana commanders that are like mid-rangey control decks. Yeah, so he's not feeding dockside, and he doesn't care about the infinite mana combos that use dockside. He's got Isorev, which is gonna be a thing again. Buy your Isochron Scepters now, guys. You know, people always say not financial advice. Well, I'm gonna say financial advice. Buy your Isorevs right now. I mean, honestly, they could get reprinted tomorrow, so maybe not financial advice, but I'm gonna. Because, you know, this is now going to be one of the most, it's going to be one of the decks that is best at making infinite mana. And it can pay it off, obviously. And we don't have to worry about dockside. Yeah, because you've also got the, what's it called? The Kraken thing. The Hullbreaker Horror, Tidespout Tyrant. You can still do those. You've got, a lot of decks use that combo. But you need a mana positive rock and a mana neutral rock. Like, you need to have a mana positive rock. Well, there's not that many in the format, and we just lost one, and we lost a mana neutral rock. So these Poly Tyrant lines, these what the hell is this thing called? The Kraken, the good lord, the combo where you use 2 rocks and you bounce them back and forth to make infinite mana with Hullbreaker Horror. Hullbreaker Horror combos aren't going to work as well anymore. Which sucks, you know, but they're still going to work perfectly well in Urza and Kinnan. You know what I mean? So those are some of my thoughts. I don't know how long I've been ranting about nothing. About a half an hour. Well, then maybe I could be convinced to do a little more ranting if you want to hear more ranting. What else was I going to... Did I even read the announcement? I didn't. You've all heard it. You probably... yeah, you've all heard it. What about this? Oh, that's what I was going to do. I was going to go down the list and just talk about the top most popular commanders and whether or not they're going to exist in the future. Let's do that just real quick. That's how I'll end the video. So in CDH, Timnacrom doesn't really care about its so it seems like Timnacrom would get this would be a big hit, right? Because like turn 2 Crom is always pretty cool. But relatively speaking, I don't think this is going to take much of a hit. Yes, it wanted dockside. Yes, it helps with some of the lines. Yes, it's nice to be able to rush out a fast Crom, but it's not necessary. Nobody's going to be able to play their big ass, you know, air elementals on crack. So it still just has the best colors in the is red even one of the best colors in the game anymore? It's not, is it? Wow. Dockside and Breach. Holy shit. Yeah, red is no longer one of the best colors in the format. Maybe Timnacrom does take a hit. But maybe relative to the format, it stays roughly in the same shape it's in. Sisay, rip. Sisay's a dockside deck. It doesn't have to always have dockside, but that's your easiest way to a win with dockside, or with Sisay. And not having the ability to just, you know, drop a dockside and win the game. I think Sisay's probably dead-ish, or it's not like Corvold dead. It's more like, I don't know, it's dead. I think it's dead. I think it's not going to be S tier anymore. This was one of the like best 5 decks in the format until like today. Rograk and Silas, we've already talked about it. I think it's taken a big hit. All the Turbo Naz decks are taking a big hit, but I think this will still be the best Turbo. It'll be even more better than the other decks than it was. It was already kind of a leg above the other Ad Nauseam decks, and I think it's going to be like 2 steps above the Ad Nauseam decks, but I think the Ad Nauseam decks are coming down a peg. So that, if I didn't make it clear, that's what I think about Rogsai. So it'll probably still be an S tier deck. It'll just be like the bottom of S tier. And Kinnan is going to move up. Kinnan, big winner. Tivit, maybe not quite dead, but it's on life support. It's not going to be, this time next year, it won't be the 5th most popular deck. Nadu, I'm pretty sure Nadu gets killed with the Nadu ban. I think Nadu doesn't survive the Nadu ban. Najeela, that's interesting. So we lose some of our fast Najeela starts. We lose our dockside stuff. It's still 5-color good stuff, and it still has mana dorks, and this is a deck that puts mana dorks to good use, and I think mana dorks are going to get a little better. I think 3-mana commanders. I think Najeela will probably stay about where she is, like an A tier, not S tier. Kinrith, rip. There will be no more of you, Kinrith. Yeah, Kinrith is a dockside deck. Magda, talked about that. I think Magda is not as good as she was, because dockside was a big part of what she did. But I don't think it's going to hurt her as much as it hurts the average deck. So I think she's going to be fine, or maybe a little better than fine. She makes mana. She makes treasures. She's going to be relatively, not unscathed. I mean, it's a big loss. Losing dockside is big for Magda. I don't want to make it sound like it's not. But all of the decks are losing dockside. Magda, I think, will be okay. Atraxa is no longer a CDH deck in our format. And it was so cool to have that big-ass 7-mana commander, but not without Jeweled Lotus. So you're losing Jeweled Lotus, you're losing Mana Crypt, and you're losing the ability to clone somebody's dockside. And I think the decks usually play like 5 fucking clones. Yeah, I don't think Atraxa. I don't think you're going to have 7-mana commanders anymore, unfortunately. Kram and Tevish, I think this is probably going to be in bad shape. It's like a mid-range ad nauseum deck, so maybe it can be okay on that front, because it's actually trying to do for play patterns that seem a little bit closer to end step ad naus. I don't know. This one's hard to read. This deck is gone, man, and I thought it was the coolest deck. I was just about to put this together. Roger and Thrasios is probably a dead deck. I don't think there's just no good reason to play it anymore. The only reason you were playing the Son of Roga, the Roger, was because you get dockside. That's literally the reason, you know. You had dockside infinite mana combos, win the game with Thrasios. Dead deck. Talion, maybe Talion gets better. Talion probably gets better. Interesting. I look at that as a bonus. I look at that as a good thing. 2-mana or 2-color commanders getting better. I think that's a good thing. Commanders that are just kind of on the outskirts of being like tiered commanders, like, I think that's cool. So we'll have some decks like this that get a bump. Yeah, so like 4-mana commanders might end up being in a pretty good spot. Just looking at the list. I think, I mean, it obviously loses the 2 fast mana pieces, but every deck in the format lost them, right? I think I've just about ran my voice out. So yeah, guys, I just had some things to say, and with all this going down, I didn't want to be the one commander channel that didn't talk about it. Poor Atali. Atali, rip. I think Atali's, yeah, RIP. I don't know. I mean, yeah, it's not good, right? You need dockside combo or food chain combo most of the time to finish the game. And when I say these are no longer decks, I mean they're no longer like decks that it would be advisable to take to a tournament. They're no longer decks that I would expect to see in the top 16 of events. Atali, I would no longer expect to see in the top 16 of. I mean, I'm not saying it can't happen, right? But I'm saying it's not. I wouldn't bring this to a tournament. And yesterday I might have, you know. I could absolutely see myself playing Atali at a tournament. It's so cool. The deck is so cool. But now without the dockside combos where it goes infinite dockside mana and then infinitely cast Atali to win the game, you just have to find food chain. Oh, which I'm going to make that prediction too. Food chain's going to make a comeback. Now that you don't have dockside combos, something's going to have to replace some food chain and the Isochron Scepter Dramatic. So infinite mana's gotta. We have to have ways to make infinite mana. So we're gonna go back to doing the things we did before dockside existed. Rocco is probably dead. Yeah, Rocco is dead. That's a dockside deck. Malcolm Tana, I think probably relative to the rest of the decks in the format, despite dockside being a fucking pirate. And it's a bummer to lose it, but I don't care. I don't care much. Malcolm and Kedis, or Malcolm and Tana, my 2 main decks. I almost never tutor for dockside. It's just not a thing. It doesn't matter. Like if I was hurting for mana in my Malcolm Tana deck, I run Kedis main deck, and I would tutor for Kedis out of the 99 before most of the time. It depends, depending. Stella Lee, I don't know the deck well enough to even vote. Malcolm Tana, which is another deck I play. is fine. This is gonna be fine. We're getting into decks I really don't know, but I'm pretty sure Derevi is pissed about Nadu. That's my guess. My guess is Derevi's not a happy camper. I think I've wasted enough of your time with my psychobabble, y'all. Thank you so much for watching, and I'd love it if you joined the Discord. The Discord's taking off. People are trying to organize spell table games. Like, this is... I know I was just talking about Cedh for fucking 40 minutes or whatever it's been, but first and foremost, we're a budget channel. Budget competitive is the most fun way to build. It's challenging. It's going to be completely unscathed by any of these bannings. Our little sub format doesn't give a fuck, right? We can't afford dockside anyway. It's a fun place to build. The gameplay is engaging and exciting and clever, I think is the right way to describe the format. You can't do all these big brawny, like, crazy powerful things. It's more subtle. And we don't have games ending on turn 2. I've never seen a $100 budget game end on turn 2. I've seen turn 3. Mostly, the proactive decks are trying to put a win on the stack on turn 4. And probably the average game goes to, like, turn 6. So it's fun. You don't have, like, people hiding behind a mountain of free interaction and heuristic study and all of that. So you don't have, like, 2-hour games. Don't go to time in budget. Budget's faster. Well, budget is faster than the slow games and slower than the fast games in Cedh. So you've got all the shitty games in Cedh where you've got these shitty turn 1 or turn 2 wins. You don't have those in budget. And then you've got, like, the other shitty games that are, like, the time runs out and you draw. Also does not happen in budget. So that's I think those two things, which are true, that just makes a good pitch for the format. And if you want to find out more about it, please hop into the Discord. The Discord? Don't hop into the Discord. You'll end up in the graveyard. Hop into the Discord, though. I think that's all I got, guys. Until next time, word to your mothers, word to your fathers, word to your sisters. In fact, word to your daughters, because your daughters will grow up to be mothers. East side, I'm gonna go with east side today. I've been on the west side kick a little bit, but I think I'm gonna say east side until I die. You know what? It'd be a lot. It's not me being true to myself. So west side until I die, and just gonna be short, quick, to the point. Namaste.